The university's fine arts department was usually silent this early in the morning, but the hallway outside room 3B buzzed with an unusual tension. Students whispered, nudged each other, and kept glancing toward the lone girl sitting at the far corner of the classroom. She wasn't sketching like everyone else. Instead, she sat with her arms folded, gaze sharp, posture straight, as if the chair wasn't designed for a civilian, but for someone accustomed to standing guard. Her name, at least the one she gave, was Riley Haled, and no one knew where she came from, and no one knew why she suddenly enrolled mid-semester. And no one knew why she carried herself like someone trained to stay alive in places where people usually died. But what caught everyone's eye first wasn't her demeanor, it was her tattoos. Lines, symbols, coordinates, dates, and a faint emblem that looked military but wasn't recognizable to any normal branch. Some students recognized one symbol, though, the outline of a trident entangled with a blade, something that looked suspiciously similar to a Navy SEAL insignia, but altered. Rumors started within minutes. Maybe she copied the tattoo from Pinterest, someone whispered. No, bro, that's totally military. Look at her posture. Whatever. She's probably some wannabe tough girl who thinks art school is a battlefield. But the loudest group was the group that now hovered beside the door. The campus's self-proclaimed art elites, a bunch of students who loved to bully newcomers, especially anyone who didn't fit their style. Today, they had a target, and she was sitting right there. When Professor Klein walked in, older, kind-eyed, and oblivious to who he'd just allowed his class, he sighed at the usual gossiping. Settle down, everyone. Today, we're sketching human posture. Pair up. The entire class turned toward Riley. All eyes fell on her tattoos. The vultures smelled bait, and the vultures moved. Point four students, Trent, Lena, Marco, and Jenna, walked toward her desk with smirks plastered across their faces. They were known for their arrogance, known for mocking anyone who dressed differently or didn't share their pretentious art philosophy. They surrounded Riley's table like a circle closing in on prey, but the prey didn't look up, didn't react, didn't even blink. That Jenna's tone was dripping with sarcasm. So, art class, huh? She tapped Riley's shoulder. Didn't think tattooed military wannabes liked drawing. Trent leaned closer to one of Riley's visible tattoos. Coordinates inked near her wrist. These look fake, he said loudly. Like totally fake. Did you get these from some cheap shop? Lena alone it. Or maybe they're from her ex-boyfriend. Or her favorite video game. Still, Riley didn't respond. Marco leaned forward, pointing at the modified trident emblem. This one. This is the funniest. It looks like she tried to copy the Navy SEAL logo, but messed it up. The entire classroom stared. Professor Klein sighed. Guys, leave the new student alone. We're here to... Riley finally looked up. IT was the kind of look a person gives when they have survived more than any of these bullies could imagine. Cold, calm, assessing. Are you finished? She asked softly. That voice, steady, low, and unbothered, made two of them take an instinctive half-step back. But Trent forced a chuckle. Relax. We're asking about your tattoos. They're interesting. Riley exhaled through her nose. They're not for decoration. Jenna smirked. Oh, what are they for? Intimidation? No, Riley said. They're memories. Something dark flickered behind her eyes, but Trent only scoffed. You know what? Someone should report her. Military insignia is protected. You can't just wear SEAL symbols like some edgy poser. Professor Klein intervened again. That's enough. Please take your seats. But Trent wasn't done. Actually, he said louder so the entire room could hear, we should probably check if she's lying about something. I mean, who are you even? No background, no files, no social media. What are you hiding? Riley's fingers twitched. She inhaled once and finally spoke. I didn't come here to hide anything, she said. I came here because I promised someone I would learn to draw again. Draw again? Lena alone it. What, did you forget how? Riley paused. No, she said quietly. I just lost the hands I used to draw with. The room fell silent. And slowly, she rolled up her sleeve. The collective gasp echoed across the room. Her forearm was real, muscle-toned, natural, but the underside revealed heavy scarring. Precise surgical scars, tendon repair marks, and burn patterns that only one kind of person ever survives. Combat. But even that wasn't what froze them. IT was the tattoo beneath it. SEAL Team 9. Omega UNIT Ghost Reaper. Several students staggered back, as if the air had turned to ice. One boy whispered, trembling. Wait, no way. SEAL Team 9? That unit that's classified. Someone else murmured, Ghost Reaper. I've heard that codename. Isn't that the one from the Kargan extraction? The raid where Professor Klein's face went pale. Riley pulled her sleeve back down slowly. I don't care about rumors, she said calmly. And I didn't come to impress you. She closed her sketchbook, which had no sketches, only rough graphite marks like someone learning to move their hand again. I came here, she said, because after 15 years overseas, I wanted to remember what peaceful hands looked like. No one spoke. Not a breath moved. But Trent, confused, embarrassed, desperate to regain the power he felt slipping, pointed at her again. You're lying, he snapped. There's no way. SEAL legends don't sit in art classes. Riley's jaw tightened for the first time. She stood slowly. The room collectively stepped back, because she didn't just stand. She rose the way a warrior rises, balanced, centered, scanning. Believe what you want, she said quietly. But don't mistake quiet for weakness. Marco's voice shook. W, what are you? Some kind of military freak. Riley stepped closer, and for a moment, the room felt colder. I'm someone who tried to live a normal life, she whispered. Don't take that away from me. Her eyes had a haunted, exhausted truth that no actor could fake. But then, a voice echoed from the classroom door. Lieutenant Commander Hale. The entire class spun around. A man in full Navy uniform stood in the doorway. Stern, imposing, decorated. Everyone froze. Even Riley. She turned toward him slowly. Commander Briggs, she said. I told you I wasn't coming back. The commander stepped in. I didn't come to recruit you, he said. I came to thank you. He opened a folder. It's official. The Phoenix Operation Report has been declassified. Your actions saved 14 operators and prevented an international crisis. The world is finally allowed to know what you did. Gasps spread around the room. Trent's face drained of color. Briggs continued. And these students should know who they nearly mocked into leaving. He turned, raising his voice. You stand in front of one of the highest decorated SEALs this country has ever produced. Call sign. Ghost Reaper. Record. Unmatched. Status. Living legend. And if she wants to draw, he said, you let her draw. Silence. The students stood frozen, and no one dared breathe. Riley closed her eyes slowly, the weight of a past she didn't want pressing on her chest. I'm not a legend, she muttered. But Briggs shook his head. You are, whether you like it or not. He nodded respectfully and left. The door closed behind him, leaving Riley standing in the center of the stunned classroom. For the first time, she looked shaken, but she sat back down quietly, pulled out her pencil, and tried to draw again, hands trembling with memories heavier than ink. The class watched in awe. The bullies didn't return to her table. Not that day. Not ever again. But that was only the beginning. Because none of them knew, Riley Hale hadn't just escaped her past. Her past had followed her to this campus, and before long, this art class would become a battlefield too. The change began subtly, almost unnoticeable to everyone except Riley herself. The atmosphere around campus grew heavier in the days that followed. She couldn't shake off the instinct she'd built over countless missions, the sense of being watched. Her internal alarms, those invisible tripwires woven into her nerves through years of survival, were tingling again. She had told Briggs she was done. She had told herself she was done. But trouble had its own way of finding people like her. The IT started one afternoon when Professor Klein asked students to gather outside for a posture study assignment. The class scattered, sitting around the grassy courtyard with sketchbooks in hand. Riley sat under the only shaded tree, trying to follow instructions, trying to retrain muscles that had once fired sniper shots a mile away. Now she struggled just to keep the pencil steady. Her hand trembled from micro damage no surgery could fully repair. The shadow fell across her page. Trent. But his expression wasn't arrogant anymore. It was uneasy, almost apologetic. Hey, he muttered, scratching the back of his neck. Can I talk? Riley didn't look up. You don't owe me anything, she said flatly. That's not, he exhaled. I didn't know who you were. We shouldn't have done that. I am sorry. Riley froze for half a second, then returned to her drawing. Just don't repeat it, she said. He swallowed, nodded, and walked away. But the moment he disappeared behind a corner, Riley felt a prickle on her spine, one that made her lift her eyes from the paper. Someone else had been watching her interaction. And this time, it wasn't a student that a tall man in a gray jacket stood across the courtyard, gaze locked on her. He wasn't pretending to hide it. His posture was deliberate, too balanced to be accidental, too still to be casual. Riley's instinct screamed. Old training surged back like a tide, swallowing quiet shorelines, scan, calculate distance, identify escape points. Her eyes flicked his hands. Left sleeve, a faint bulge where a shoulder holster would sit. Right boot, military grade, not civilian, NO insignia, NO student badge, and O faculty lanyard. Not here for education. He touched his earpiece. Confirmation. Riley closed her sketchbook immediately and stood, walking away with controlled steps. Not running. Running would trigger pursuit. Her mind sharpened. SEAL Team 9 level danger. Unknown operator. Intention unclear, but present on a civilian campus. Illegal without clearance. She took the long path around the art building, pretending to be heading toward the cafeteria. But as soon as she turned the corner, her tempo changed. She slipped between two buildings, dropped low, and vanished behind the maintenance shed. 10 seconds later, two men in gray jackets passed the same area she had been in moments earlier. Not 1.2, her heartbeat slowed. They weren't amateurs. They moved like wolves tracking prey. She inhaled deeply. A calm, familiar darkness settled over her. The old combat mind she had buried under layers of new life. Someone had come for her. She had one choice: confront or run. Running would bring them closer to the students, and Riley Hale had never been someone who left civilians in danger. She stepped from behind the shed silently. Waited. When the second man turned the corner, her hand shot forward like lightning. She grabbed him by the jacket, yanked him into the shadows, slammed him against the wall, and clamped a steel-hard palm over his mouth. "Who sent you?" she whispered. His eyes widened, but he tried to reach for his concealed pistol. Bad move. Riley twisted his arm behind his back with surgical precision and pressed her elbow into the pressure point behind his shoulder blade. His knees buckled. "I said," she whispered coldly, "who sent you?" He rasped in pain. You're supposed to be dead." Her grip tightened. "And you're supposed to answer." But before he could speak, a voice called from behind, "Commander Hale, stand down." Riley froze. Not because she feared the voice, but because she recognized it. She turned slowly, and her blood ran cold. Major Soren Vex had a ghost from her classified past, a man she had once trusted to man the Pentagon believed missing, a man she had watched fall in the burning ruins of the Sierra Black site. But he was alive and standing 5 feet away. "What do you want?" she said, releasing the pinned man. Vex smiled faintly. "I came to bring you home. This is my home now." "It's not," he said. "You can't outrun what's coming." Riley tensed. "Say what you came to say." Vex stepped closer, voice lowering. "The Omega unit didn't die in Sierra. Someone rebuilt it. Someone dangerous. Someone who wants you back." Riley's pulse throbbed painfully. "No, that unit was shut down. I shut it down, which is exactly why they need you removed." "Removed?" Vex's eyes glinted. "Riley, they want to erase you. Because you're the only loose end." Her breath slowed. "So you're here to kill me?" A slow exhale. "No," he said. "I'm here to warn you that others will." The man she had pinned looked terrified now, realizing he wasn't the hunter, he was a pawn. Riley stepped between them, jaw clenched. "You brought armed men onto a civilian campus?" Vex shook his head. "I brought protection. These men answer to me." "Protection from who?" Vex stared at her with heavy, broken eyes. "From the very people we once served." A silence deep as a grave settled between them. Riley stepped back. "You shouldn't have come here. You shouldn't have tried to disappear." He moved closer, voice softening. "Riley, listen to me. They're coming. And if you don't leave with us," no, her voice shook the air like a suppressed gunshot. "I'm not going back. You don't have a choice." She raised her chin. "I always have a choice." Vex studied her for a long moment. then sighed, sorrowful. I was afraid you'd say that. He lifted a hand. The two gray jacket operators moved instantly, closing in on her. Riley's voice dropped to a whisper, don't. But they didn't stop. The first grabbed her arm. Bad mistake. Riley snapped his wrist backward, spun, and used his momentum to throw him over her shoulder. He hit the ground hard. The second swung at her. Riley ducked, swept his legs out from beneath him, and pinned him with her knee. Vex didn't interfere. He watched, quietly, like a ghost watching a storm he'd once lived through. You haven't lost your touch, he murmured. Riley stood slowly, chest rising and falling. Leave, she said. Now. Vex nodded once. We will, but we'll be back. He tilted his head. And next time, it won't be a warning. He turned away. His men gathered themselves and followed. Riley watched them disappear around the corner, her breath trembling, something she hadn't allowed herself to do in years. Her peaceful life was gone. Her past had come back like a shadow swallowing sunlight. And she knew this wasn't over. Not until she confronted the ghosts she thought she'd buried. Not until she returned to the battlefield she'd escaped. She looked at her trembling hand, the same one she had been trying to train for drawing.it. Steadied. The trembling stopped. Her eyes hardened. If they wanted Ghost Reaper, they were going to get her. But not like before. This time, she wasn't fighting for a mission. Not for a country. Not for revenge. She was fighting for the life she finally wanted. She picked up her sketchbook and walked back toward class. Not as a hunted soldier, but as a woman ready to fight for peace with the same fury she once fought for survival. She whispered under her breath, let them come. Because this time, the battlefield was hers.